Alright, welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler. We are doing another episode review of Venture Brothers. We're on episode 7, Ice Station Impossible. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. I love this series. Venture Brothers is the best. Sorry for the delays in episodes. I've been doing the Let's Plays on the YouTube, but because that's kind of easier to record because I kind of have to write a script and write what I'm going to be talking about in regards to these episodes, or these reviews rather than doing just a simple Let's Play episode, which is just record and then edit if I need to, but even then usually no, and then just throw it up on the YouTube. Also, I haven't had the editing software for a while, but let's just get into what we're getting into today, which is the Venture Brothers Ice Station Impossible, as I said. Credit to the makers of the intro, by the way. Fed to the Flames made that little clip that I've created out of their song Stargazer. Check it out on SoundCloud, I think it is on. It's great. I truly love them. Great work. And so let's get started in this episode. We've got beginning of the episode is the Race Bannon, which is the white-haired character who is like the stepdad character for Johnny Quest in the Johnny Quest series. If anyone remembers watching that at this point, I do, and I'm in my 20s, so I'd assume anyone in this age group kind of remembers, if at least vaguely. So from the Johnny Quest series, there was his father, but there was also the other guy, the bodyguard. Honestly, the Brock character. So we see him, and he fucking kills a guy who's like, "You suck!" And you have this quick little plane battle, and then he has to catch this what shows a toxic symbol on it, canister, and he's like, "See you guys, it was a blast," as he drops a grenade and fucking flies off and is laughing at his success. And then as he's laughing, you see the plane kind of fly off in the distance, and then it comes back around and hits him. It's so brutal. It's a savage little beginning way of showing this, of a realism of what could happen in this kind of a scenario. You jump out of a plane that you just set off to just be destroyed, it might crash into you. And then it shows the plane falling into the Venture compound area. The canister falls and hits Hank as Dean's like, "What was that?" And then you hear a guy screaming, and then a fucking snake dude, which was the dude that Bannon was fighting, runs out and is like, "Ah!" And Brock just hits him and sprays him with water and just easily puts him out. It's such an intriguing, a great way to begin this little episode. And then, so ungracefully and sadly, you see Bannon just kind of float down, all limp, with his parachute, and just fall and lands, and so sad and brutal, so intense. And then we flow into, after the intro, to Billy, White, and Rusty. Billy and White you might remember from the pilot episode as the big-headed guy who's a kid, but not a kid, who's talking to the albino, the pink-looking guy, but who's an albino, I'm pretty sure. I know he is, but we haven't learned that yet, I don't think. And White's talking about how, I can't believe I'm working for Dr. Impossible, and Billy's like, "Yeah, it's a dream come true." No, because he flunked me in college. And then he talks to Rusty like, "Didn't he flunk you?" Scrape by with a D. My dad died that year. So brutal. And then Dr. Impossible, before Dr. Impossible walks in, fucking Rusty makes the joke of he thinks he's so fantastic, which is, I never realized it's kind of like a dig on the whole fact that he's supposed to be Mr. Fantastic. So Dr. Impossible walks in and is like, all talking about how his suits are really cool, and he's all boasting about it and being all kind of arrogant-ish. And then Rusty's like, "Why aren't you in a impossible suit?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry." And he changes his suit into obviously back to a regular impossible suit, because apparently it can change form and cloak itself as a suit, which is cool, but the fuck? How is he doing that? And then he talks about how, like, it's a really good... Basically, he boasts up the suit a lot, and he's like, it changes your dead skin cells and turns them in for the energy and keeps the suit at a cool, comfortable 70 degrees. And Rusty complains about his because it's all loose fitting, apparently, but then Dr. Impossible does a whole stretch and presses a button and it fits perfectly. And Rusty's like, how's it? And well, he's like, how's it fit? And Dr. Rusty's like, impossibly good. I want to point out when this right here, sorry, I go clicking, that the Dr. Impossible is played by Stephen Colbert. There's a few episodes later on in the series that I don't think he's played by Colbert anymore, because he gets I think a more consistent role. I don't know, or Colbert is just famouser. But in this episode, he is Stephen Colbert, and it's one of my. I remember this is like one of my early first personal introductions of Colbert back in like 2005 when I was watching this, and it's really good. I would say a really good performance. It's also really funny. His voice fits Dr. Impossible really well. I actually watched a news clip of Colbert just doing something on his talk show talking about actually Blue's Clues and stuff, which, oh my god, everyone loved Joe. Joe. I love him too. Like, look how much you've grown and you've achieved. Amazing. Anyways, I saw a clip of that with Stephen Colbert, and I was actually listening to his voice going, damn, that's exactly the same voice. Because I just watched the Ice Station Impossible episode to start writing the script. So we get through that, and then they are walking through the halls with White and Pete, and Pete, White, and Billy, and Rusty, and Dr. Impossible's showing off his stretching abilities, being like, the suit can even keep up with me. And then White's like, how do we go to the bathroom? Well, actually, it's perfect time to learn. And it's like, why? Rusty's like, why? And we got a drug test to give you. Oh, yeah. And company policy. And he explains that the suit, you just have to think it. And so Billy shows that he can do it. And then White shows it, showing off his cute little heart underwear. And Rusty, they go to Rusty's crotch, but Rusty's like, I'm not wearing underwear. And this flows into the next part, which is Brock looking for clues in the plane crash. Dean's asking what they're looking for, and they're basically looking for something weird. And Brock says that's not the snake people. And Dean's like, I know what caused the crash. There were skeletons driving it. Obviously, because the skeletons are there because they were blown up. Although I would think they would be all not charred skeletons. You would think they'd be like, bloody to just destroy. I don't know. I don't know how an explosion and a plane crash and all that crap would do to a body. I'm not sure at all. Brock then finds on the ground, he finds a license to kill, which is an interesting little foreshadowing. We kind of already seen the license to kill from Brock, but this is the first time that you really see the words license to kill, or at least that I can remember. And it's Bruce Bannon's, and he's like, sorry, I keep saying Bruce Bannon. It's Race Bannon's, and Hulk smash, I will save you, Johnny Quest. No, boy. Sorry. He's like, oh my god, there's an agent missing, we gotta find him. And Hank and Dean are like, well, I think Hank is like, oh my god, an actual spy mission? We gotta get our spy clothes. And Dean's like, let's go, and they run off. It's so fucking weird. They're such weird children who just truly do not understand. It's interesting because like they're not like, freaked out or anything that this shit's going down. They're actually like all excited and shit, but at the same time they're like totally naive and like completely misunderstanding of what the fuck's going on, because they're like, let's go get our spy clothes. And like, no, we gotta go find this guy who may or may not be dead. We have an agent MIA is what I said, not goddamn kids, damn them. But it's so great because they're like such interesting characters as they develop. We then cut to these kids are with Bannon, who found his body, and then they see it like slide down the road because he still has his parachute on thanks to the wind, and then they smile with evil smiles. It's so fucking brutal and evil. And then we go to Billy and the rest of them and doing the drug test, and Billy's all scared because he's like took, I think, hydros or some shit, and he's like, what do you think, soon, coke? And White's like, don't worry about it, you're gonna be fine. It's Rusty Venture who's got a problem, and all his little helpers that he takes, and it's like, thanks, White, but I got it covered. And he pulls out a bag of pee and is like, I think my sons are good for something. Company policy. Then he drops the bag and has to like try to pick it up. We drink the jar. So funny and horrible. And then they cuts back to the children who are cruelly riding Bannon as his corpse slides down the road. And then they find these spy tools, which they show a flamethrower, and they're like from like a lighter flamethrower shit. And so fucking, and then they start looting the corpse. It's so brutal. The children are so evil. It's like, we're loot this corpse, what we're gonna get, oh my god. And it's so intense. I just cannot believe it. And then it cuts back to getting the pee bottles to Dr. Impossible, and Rusty's being empty, and he's like, what am I? I'm like a camel. Then they see a woman, and they're like, oh, Sally, come over here. And fucking Dr. Impossible awkwardly brings her over using his stretch powers, and he's like, it's my wife, this is my wife, and then asks her why she's outside of her room, and she was like, I wanted to get something out of the kitchen. Like, oh, well, just ask me next time, I'll allow it this one time. And she's like, oh, but you're busy, like, what did I say? Like, of course, Richard, I'm sorry, Richard. He's such an asshole. I hate characters who are abusive and brutal like this, although he plays it perfectly. And then with the whole part, they also just has him like take his samples and go and have them tested. And as she's leaving, she gives this nice seductive look to Rusty, and Rusty's like, what the fuck's going on there? Oh my. So funny and brutal. And then it goes back to the kids who are like jumping over the corpse with our bikes and like trying to still find loot off of him, and they're all messing with his spy tools, showing like a girl with like dagger boots, and then the kid with the pen, acid pen that melts this bike, and then one kid's like, "Aww," so funny. And then the kid who lights the cigarette that he finds with the fucking flamethrower lighter, but Brock shows up and is like, "You don't like this kid," and like throws it away, and then it explodes because it was obviously a spy tool. God damn it, you stupid kids, you mad, cruel kids, they're evil. And then Hank like leads them off and is like, we got government business to take care of. And then they go to the body, and fucking Brock just sees them and he's like, oh my god, the bastards killed them. And Hank's like, those kids? Oh my god, we'd let them go. Dean's like, you know him? Worked with him a few times. Do you need a hug? No, Dean. And Hank just does this weird like, yeah, it's gonna get hard in this work. See a lot of death. And then Bannon like coughs and like, holy shit! And they're like, oh my god! They're all freaked out because he fucking lives. And then Bannon's like, Brock Sampson, you look nice. But then Brock's like, I'm here, Race. Like, the canister, I have it. What is it? And he's like, Goliath serum. And then he's like, tell Johnny I love. And then he dies. It's so sad, brutal. And they do the whole bow head. And then he shits himself. He releases his bowels because he died. And I remember this was in part that I was like on the commercials and stuff, because the part where like they didn't show that on TV. They used that. I don't even know if they also used it just for the Venture Brother commercials, but also just the Adult Swim commercials would have that scene for a long time during the 2000s when I was really watching Adult Swim back then, and it would have that scene specifically. They don't show that on TV and that kind of crap, which is pretty damn funny. Although I don't know, it's just intense. It's very realistic in that sense. And then it goes back to Rusty, who's working on some bullshittery on his fucking little pad. Then he takes some drugs and shit. It's so fucking intense. Then Dr. Impossible shows up and is like, what you working on? Like, oh, it's, very technical. Like, I am a scientist, And he's like, no, I'm actually here for that sample company policy, And then he leaves, and Rusty's like, oh, company policy, and then throws away his paper. And then Sally shows up, the wife, and is like, puts down the jar with Venture's name on it. That's obviously P. And he's like, is that your, and she's like, no, it's your, and he's like, I have a prescription for those, because obviously she just probably saw him taking those pills, and I need them for stuff. And she reveals a flask, and is like, you know what I need? And so, like, it's seductive, but also interesting in its own right, because obviously fucking Dr. Impossible is horrible and a crappy bastard. Then they cut back to Brock and the crew, and they watch a video on the Goliath serum, because apparently they had access to that. I'm not sure how they have that, but with the information they should have somewhere. And it explains basically that you can put this serum into an elephant, say, or it shows a bug specifically, and the bug explodes. It's an explosive device. You put it in there, and a couple hours later, or 24 hours, some shit, I'm not exactly sure how long, it will explode. And then it explains the whole patient's watch for exposure, and Brock finds the canister has a crack in it, and it starts explaining the symptoms like flushed face, extra appetite and shit like that, and Hank's just devouring food with a red face, and obviously has been apparently exposed to it. And then Hank's like, whoa, is there something on my face? And then it goes to Sally again, and Sally and Rusty are just kind of ranting about Dr. Impossible, and Sally is talking about how he hides her all the time, and Rusty's like, oh, he's just probably worried about your medical condition, and she's like, worried I'm gonna embarrass him, he's so prim and proper and all fuddy-duddy, but not like you, Rusty Venture. You curse, you a real man, curse, you sweat, you spit, and apparently she's really into a realistic type of person, fucking Dr. Impossible's all prim and proper Secretary of State bullshittery that he does. Kind of crap. He's not Secretary of State, but I think he mentioned he met the Secretary of State. So basically, he's just, the high-class elitist bullshit, I gotta look good, and my wife's got to look good, and they all gotta look this level of good and shit and stupid. And then she gets, really into it and just kiss me, and then her face undoes and shows just muscle. It's so fucking, kind of really surprising. It's the first time you see this is really surprising, and of course Rusty screams, freaks out. Commercial happens, and they go back to it, and Rusty's screaming and running out of the room, and he runs into a random room and freaking out and shit. And he finds the flame guy. It's interesting how this is all a play on the Mr. Fantastic, the Fantastic Four, and them. She's the Invisible Girl, and then you find this dude who tucks his oxygen and immediately gets set on fire. And I mean set on real fire, where I'm on fire, it's horrible fire. Now, he doesn't have some kind of way to not be on fire in the term of human on fire. And then Ned is apparently a mentally challenged person who got hardened and turned into a kind of the Thing type of thing. And so he meets them, and Ned also, because he freaked out and he hurt the flame guy because Rusty accidentally released him, which made him just catch on fire. And then Ned, the Thing type guy, the big guy, who was like, oh, you made Cody cry hurt. Ned's heart hurt. Ow. Such a good show. I love the way they play certain characters. Even the mentally challenged way that they do this is really fun and interesting. And I'm not really... doesn't seem degrading to an extent. Of course it still is on a certain level, but it's not as bad as some could be. Then it cuts to Hank is like, I don't want to be a bomb. And Brock's like, calm down. And Dean's fucking just being all nonchalant about how like, oh, you're getting stage 2. Oh, you're just gonna explode. And like, don't run around, Hank. Like the movie said not to worry about that, Brock. It's so funny how Dean's just so casual about it. And to the point where Hank finally is like, why are you just being so casual about this? I'm like, Hank, we got the best dad in the world, a super scientist dad. There's no way we're not gonna fix this. And Brock is like, your dad's been gone. You don't know where he was taken. And honestly, this is kind of above his pay grade kind of shit. And then Dean freaks out and is like, we're all gonna die. And it's like, not necessarily. I know there should be one guy who can fix this, and I happen to know where he is. Apparently he knows what Dr. Impossible is. Then goes back to Sally and talking to Rusty. Rusty basically gets the whole explanation about like what's been going on. Kind of shows that Dr. Impossible has been listening in and using his stretch abilities, and then Dr. Impossible shows up and is like, what's going on here? Besides, like, I just came for a sample, and Dr. Impossible's like, oh, I'll take that. And Sally just leaves, and he's like, I hope you do better on this than your midterms. And Rusty's like, oh, haha. And he asks Rusty to come for a ride with him. Dr. Impossible then takes him for a ride in his super jet fucking vehicle thing, and explains to him that that making a pass on my wife is okay, but going into restricted areas is not. Because Dr. Impossible is a horrible person. He's this kind of character in this end series. What's great about this scene, though, is that Rusty, because the way the car's set up, there's like a distance between the two of them in terms of like where the seat is, and they're in, an air vehicle that's open air. So Rusty's yelling, "What? I can't hear you. What?" And so it's so funny that like they were really. It's the realism of it that really makes Venture Brothers one of the best shows ever. Like. Things that would make no sense, like in superhero shows, for instance, where the two characters are talking to each other somehow, despite them being huge distance from each other. And then Dr. Impossible drops him off and is like, yeah, I'm sad that you had to get cabin fever and just walk off into the snow. And Rusty's like, that didn't happen. Like, oh no, that's what I'm going to tell them when they ask me what happened to you. Goodbye, Dr. Venture. And then so he stretches away and leaves, and is like, and Rusty's like, you know what? I cheated on my midterms. So funny. And then goes to the plane where Brock and Dean's freaking out about how he doesn't need to be there and why you need me here when the bomb's gonna go off. And Hankin goes to Brock and is like, Brock, I just want you to know, if it comes down to it, I want you to be the one to kill me. And Brock's like, don't talk like that. Promise me, Brock. I will. Promise? I will. How would you do it? Your sleeve, a jerk on the neck. Well, you never feel a thing. You've thought about this. Yes, I have. So brutal and intense. Then it has Rusty walking in the snow, who then he steps in the only fucking yellow snow somehow. Has a hallucination. Fucking Brock shows up to save his ass at the last second, kills a polar bear for him, and throws the polar bear's freshly skinned fur on him so he doesn't die, because Brock is the most savage, amazing man of all time. And I love the whole joke of like, oh, are you an hallucination? Like, no, I'm actually here, Doc. Like, what, did you miss me? What the hell? Like, well, Hank's a bomb. It's a long story. Amazing little bit. I really do like further reviewing, because I always feel like I'm just repeating or recapping the series, these episodes. But the point is, these episodes are great. Like, every episode of this series is so great that it just simply needs to recap the episode more than anything. I would always recommend watching this series, please. It's brilliant. Let's continue, though. Then they show, like, Dr. Impossible trying to stop Sally from leaving even more, like, being all stretched out, and then they're, like, the alarm shows off, and he's like, Joe, what are you doing here? And, like, this is a government facility, and Brock's like, I work for the government. Like, well, you're still not supposed to be here. Like, I need your help, Dr. Impossible. Like, no, you don't. You're Venture's bodyguard. You're here to beat me up. Well, try to beat up a man who's living rubber. Yeah. And then Brock's like, jackass. He's all hopped up on Goliath serum. And, like, we need an antidote. Is there one? Well, yeah. You could kill him. But then it's I like this part because it actually has Brock like defends Hank, of course, but also Rusty runs up and is like puts his body in the way. Of course, Dr. Muscle's like that's gonna stop me, but still, it's interesting to see Rusty and of course Brock, but also Rusty be willing to sacrifice their lives to save Hank in this scenario, despite Hank being a straight up hawk. Billy and White then show up, and Billy's like, what the hell are you doing? Basically, they're Dr. Impossible. Dr. Impossible explains essentially that we should kill him, and Billy's like, that's ridiculous. We're scientists, we're smart, this is a think tank, and we should try to fix this. And he's like, nope, let's kill him. And then Ned's like, no, he shows up, and the thing guy, and the fire guy is like, you son of a bitch, because he's screaming because he's on fire, and they all tie him up and using his rubberness and shit. And then they're like, okay, we gotta try to make an antidote. And they're like, think tank, let's do this. And they do an antidote montage, and they make a thing, and they have Hank drink it, and Hank drinks it, and he apparently seems cured. And they're like, yay, think tank. And Dr. Impossible, though, shows back up, and is like, you didn't do anything, you invented ranch dressing after he sniffs it. And he explains that apparently it wasn't supposed to be used on humans usually, so why would it just wouldn't work like that. And although I will agree, Sally Impossible explains that you're just jealous of Rusty and how we actually were able to stop what you were trying to do, essentially, and that we were able to do something you were unable to do effectively, essentially. And then Sally goes off and then rants about how, like, you lost again, Richard. I'm going with Dr. Venture now. And Rusty's like, what? And the boys are like, cool, new invisible mom. Go Team Venture. And Sally goes like, I'm gonna go get my things. And then Brock going like, you wanna, yeah, go. Let's do this. Rusty's just got gone. And then does the outro and the after credits scene. Sally's crying because Rusty left because he's an asshole, but you know, what are you gonna do? That one's a weird subject because I'm like, he's obviously an asshole. He should definitely have been more clear about that and everything. He was obviously just trying to get pussy, and that's all it was. But and it's weird because like effectively his only complaint is that she turns half invisible. I mean, she's hot as fuck, man. But whatever. I don't know exactly how that works on Rusty's side, and it's really rude that he just leaves. And then Dr. Impossible, as he's inspecting apparently the sample that Rusty left, he realizes that Dr. Venture is pregnant, which of course means that Sally Impossible there is pregnant, which I'm also uncertain about because I don't know. Later on, the kid is almost implied as being Rusty's, but this is the first time Sally and Rusty have met. So I'm not really sure how like the two kind of coordinate or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Maybe I'm just fucking don't understand how the kid works and that shit. But at least in my opinion, it always felt like that kid was straight up Rusty's event later on, or a Venture. I don't know. He's kind of out of the picture late games, I think. I don't know. We'll see. Kiss you. I kiss you. Welcome back. Okay, sorry. Welcome back to the episodes review series, though. I will be trying to do these. I'm not sure because I have Amazon work, which is a lot of work. I do 10-hour night shifts, and that's with the commute. It's like a 12-hour day every day, and then they also make me do overtime on Tuesdays. But nonetheless, we'll be doing episode reviews. I think once a month at least is what I'm going to be going for. I'll try to make them more, but I'm uncertain about that. But thank you guys for joining me. This was Ice Station Impossible. I love it. I think this is the last episode that we have like establishing a character group. Like from here on, it's essentially just using these characters that have been introduced in these last 7 episodes up until the last season's finale. And this is the characters we have for the majority of the series. This is our group, our friends. Billy, although they're not used much in this episode, Billy and White are some of the best characters in the series too. I really enjoy them as partner characters to Rusty, and they're also just fun solo characters on their own, in my opinion. I also love Stephen Colbert, did really great as Dr. Impossible, and will also continue to do great as Dr. Impossible later episodes. This is a good episode showing Rusty as a character, because it shows his desires and things, and what his appeals about him to ladies, I guess, and others. In comparison to someone like Dr. Impossible, who revels in his fame and his power and his scientific genius, despite Rusty probably being capable of doing maybe not exactly the same, because he doesn't have the financial power, but he is obviously famous enough that he could have done something similar to that. It also is interesting to show White and Rusty are apparently college classmates, although that's not said. It's practically implied, basically, with the fact that they both flunked by Dr. Impossible. It also is interesting it's a showing of Billy's character, because he wanted to be a dream come true for him to work for Dr. Impossible, where for Rusty and White, it was like, whatever, he's just another person, essentially, to them. And it also really was interesting because it shows off the OSI a little bit with their license to kill, and also the other parts of the organization stuff through Brock's side, on the other side of the episode. It was a fun one, really fun one. I would not say one of my top episodes. When you look back at the last 3-4 episodes we had just done, Homeland Security is fucking amazing. This one's higher than Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic, but only barely, because Billy and White's in it and shit, and I hate Mr. Brisby as a character for some reason. I just can't deal with him. I just don't like him. And Molotov is a frustrating character, in my opinion, too. Brock deserves better, so whatever. And then, of course, but besides that one, Eeny, Miny, Magic, Home Insecurity, and Ghost of Sargassum, all better episodes than this episode. No doubt. 100%. This is definitely lower tier on the totem pole of episodes. In fact, I would put it, it's only better than Careers and Science and Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic. Those are the only 2 episodes worse than this episode so far that we have reviewed. And, of course, the pilot episode. But the pilot episode is the worst episode we've reviewed, and it will stay that way, because it is the pilot episode. It's just how it is. I've been ranting a little longer than I should have, so I'm going to end this podcast episode here. Thank you for joining me, guys. I will hope you continue to listen to this, my little dulcet tones. I've implied some music in the background now to try to mitigate any kind of background noise problems or just, boringness or whatever. Make you feel a little better if you're listening on headsets or what have you. Check me out wherever you can find your podcasts. Pretty sure I'm on Google Podcasts. No, sorry. Shit. Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify. Google one's hard to get on. I have to pay for that, and I haven't done it. And check our YouTube channel out, Supreme Fuzzler channel, of course. This is the Fuzzlercast little show. Thank you for joining me. Goodbye.